So the former general manager of the Brooklyn Nets, Billy King, as well as the current owner, Mikhail Prokhorov, although I'm pretty sure he's not as hands-on now because he sold a significant amount of his stake in the team. Those two put this franchise in about as bad of a position as you can put an NBA team in, because they wanted to win as quickly as possible, and they said screw the future to do that, acquiring Joe Johnson, and then of course the trade where they got Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Jason Terry for 3 first-round picks. It didn't work out, and, you know, we know the situation that this team has been in. But I gotta be honest, with head coach Kenny Atkinson, as well as general manager Sean Marks, I think the Nets are doing about as good of a job as they possibly can do, given the situation that they're in, and the way that they've acquired first-round picks, as well as some young players who can hopefully grow into something. And I just want to give them some credit. So the first thing we can talk about is just the first-round picks that they've acquired. Actually, I don't want to talk about that first. I want to go into Kenny Atkinson first. This previous season, sure, the Nets sucked because they just weren't that talented of a team. But if you look at the style of basketball they were playing, it is a style that is successful nowadays. They were top 5 in three-point attempts. And I think the top 5 teams in three-point attempts are the Rockets, the Warriors, the Celtics, and the Cavaliers. So clearly it works. And then there's the Nets. So they don't have the talent, but they're playing basketball the right way. And I mean, there is like actual movement of bodies off ball and spreading the floor. So that's a good sign. And when Jeremy Lin was not injured last season, they were actually a respectable basketball team. If you go look at their record over the last like month of the season, it's actually pretty okay, so that's a good sign for them. And I think all that's from Kenny Atkinson just doing a good job as a coach. So now we can talk about the first round picks. I believe they've acquired 3 firsts ever since Sean Marks took over. The first one was when they traded Thad Young for a first round pick that turned into Karis LeVert, a 6'7" shooting guard who would have been a lottery pick if it wasn't for a couple injuries, as well as some off-the-court stuff that you can Google if you want to. I mean, that's a pretty simple trade, but they still executed it well. Like, they got a first-round pick for a guy in Thad Young who just wasn't really helping them because he was a veteran on an established contract, and they were a team that needed to acquire as many future assets as possible, so that's a good move. The next one was when they traded Bojan Bogdanovic to the Wizards for another first-round pick. They just recently used that first-round pick in the draft that we just had to acquire Jared Allen, who is a center who, I don't know if he's going to make an impact right away because typically guys drafted in the 20s, it takes a minute, but at the same time he could come in and be awesome for them day one, so who knows, but a lot of people do like Jared Allen for, I want to say, his defensive foundation. So that's good. You know, they got another young guy who people like a decent amount, and they got it for a guy in Bogdanovic, who, another dude who was a little more established, a little older, not someone who's really going to make a difference for this team's future. So it's just a good trade. And then finally, they took on DeMarre Carroll and his salary because he hasn't been as good for Toronto ever since they got him. And they got a first-round pick in that deal as well. Now, if they're actually going to use that pick or not, I don't know, but Sean Marks is just doing a good job. You know, took in a guy in DeMarre Carroll who, yeah, it might knock up your salary a little bit, but at the same time, I don't know if you're a free agent destination anyway. And you got yourself another first-round pick, so I think that's just a very good move on their part. But they've also done a good job of just acquiring young players who could just potentially be something. I mean, of course, D'Angelo Russell is the main one to talk about here. The way that I feel about D'Angelo Russell, I've said it a million times, and I really don't feel like going into detail about it. Too long didn't read. I'm not very high on the guy. But given that Brooklyn doesn't have too many real options here, I have no problem with them giving the attempt with D'Angelo Russell. And I do think they're going to have lineups with D'Angelo Russell and Jeremy Lin playing together, and I could picture that being kind of creative with two ball handlers. I could see times where Kenny Atkinson plays one of them like Isaiah Thomas, the way Brad Stevens will have him off ball. So like maybe D'Angelo Russell will bring the ball up floor, and then Jeremy Lin will cut across the floor and use some off-ball screens to get open, or maybe get his defender slowed down just a bit, and then Russell will pass him the ball, and if Lin's not open, then he could get another screen from a guy, and then maybe Russell's guy would be forced to provide help, and then Lin could kick it out to Russell. Things like that. I do picture Kenny Atkinson having some fun with these two playing together. Now, I wonder what's going to happen with Karis LeVert, because I do think he's a natural shooting guard. They did acquire Alan Crabb. Now, Crabb, I think he can be good in terms of stretching the floor, but I do think he could also get in Karis LeVert's way in the rotation, and I would much rather have LeVert in there because his potential is just way higher than Crabb's, and I wouldn't trust Alan Crabb to play the small forward position, so we're going to have to see what happens there. As far as actual small forwards on this team, there is still rondae-hollis Jefferson. I don't know if he's ever going to develop into being a shooter. He's probably just going to be a defender and an athlete for a while. I mean, if the jumper can actually become something, that's awesome, but who really knows? And then as far as their front court is concerned, they're still going to be answering some questions, or have to answer some questions. I think Trevor Booker might still be their starting four, and I mean, you know, he's an NBA player, sure, but I wouldn't really want him starting for my team, but they don't have too many options. Whatever. Given the situation that they were presented, I think Sean Marks and the front office have done about as good of a job as you possibly can do. Now, they have been willing to take on salary to acquire assets. I don't think they have all the cap space left in the world, so I wouldn't go too crazy on that anymore. But I mean, they've acquired first-round picks. They've got some young players to feel good about. So I think Sean Marks has done an awesome job, and I think Kenny Atkinson as a head coach is very good. So sure, it's still going to be a while for the Nets, but I think they're doing things the right way.